Welcome to Griffonomics.
Glad to be here for this one because, well, it's a massive topic today.
It really is. I mean, imagine a free AI chatbot completely botching your company's payroll.
Oh, yeah. And you are the one the IRS holds financially responsible for that mess.
Exactly. It's a nightmare scenario. So today, we are doing a deep dive into why a fundamentally, boring tax software company is betting its entire future on one core reality.
Which is that when it comes to your money, just having a smart AI simply isn't enough.
Right. You need an AI that actually takes the blame when things go wrong.
Yeah, liability is huge here.
So if you are listening to this right now, you are probably trying to figure out where the world of business, technology, and finance is actually heading in this wild age of artificial intelligence.
And to do that, we are breaking down a massive stack of source material today.
Yeah, we've got the Q2 fiscal 2026 earnings transcripts, the Form 10Q filings, and a bunch of strategic presentation slides from Intuit.
And let me tell you, right out of the gate, Intuit is no longer just that desktop tax software you used to buy at the store.
Not at all. The central thesis of today's deep dive is that Intuit has hit this fundamental inflection point.
Right. They are transforming from what you'd call a system of record.
Which is essentially just basic software tools where you have to manually enter all your own data.
Exactly. They are moving from that into a system of intelligence.
Meaning fully autonomous, done-for-you experiences.
And to understand how monumental this shift is, we really have to look at how they are combining cutting-edge artificial intelligence with human intelligence.
Which they refer to as HI, right, in their documents.
Yeah, AI plus HI. They are running a playbook that Intuit's CEO, Sasan Goodarzi, believes puts them in a category of one.
A category of one? That is a massive claim.
It really is. It's the idea that in a world absolutely obsessed with generalized AI, Intuit has built this architectural moat.
An impenetrable moat.
Well, one that makes them virtually untouchable by standard tech startups. Yeah.
So I want to dig into that category of one concept. But before we look at how Intuit is making money off this transition, I think we need to understand the tech that's actually protecting that money.
Because the obvious question on everyone's mind is, why isn't a free generalized AI just going to replace TurboTax and QuickBooks entirely?
Exactly. I mean, I can go to a chatbot right now and ask it to do math. Why use Intuit?
Well, Intuit's answer to the threat of free AI is an architecture they call the context versus core framework.
Context versus core. Okay, break that down for me.
So the core is Intuit's proprietary domain-specific data. We are talking about decades of longitudinal behavioral data here.
Right.
To put a hard number on it, they have 625,000 distinct data attributes per small and mid-market business.
Wait, hold on. 625,000 attributes.
Per business, yes.
And what about regular consumers?
For consumers, they have about 70,000 attributes per person.
Wow. But what does a data attribute actually mean in this context? Are we just talking about name and income?
Oh, no, it's so much deeper. It means they don't just know your annual revenue. They know exactly how often you pay your vendors.
Wait.
They track your seasonal cash flow dips. They see the specific deduction patterns for an independent contractor in your specific zip code over the last 10 years.
That is a staggering amount of highly sensitive financial history.
It is. And the golden rule of this core data is that it absolutely never leaves Intuit's four walls.
Okay, let's unpack this. So essentially, Intuit's core data is like the master chef, and the public AI is just the food processor.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah.
Like, they don't really care if everyone else in the world has access to the exact same fancy food processor, because Intuit is the only one sitting on the actual recipe.
That's exactly it. The external large language models.
The LLMs, right?
Yeah, the LLMs you hear about every day, like OpenAI and Anthropic, those are just there to handle the tedious prep work.
And that's the context side of the framework.
Exactly. They use these external models to handle the long tail of generalized tasks.
Like what, for example?
Like allowing their AI to converse naturally with a user or, format a beautifully written report.
And they can do that without giving up their secrets.
Right. Intuit never has to share its proprietary economics or raw customer data with those outside AI companies to get that slick interface.
That distinction makes a lot of sense. But, what is the actual return on investment for the user? I mean, why do I care if the AI is writing a nice report?
You care because of the raw time being saved.
Okay, how much time?
Well, their AI accounting agent is currently saving users 12 hours a month.
Wow.
And their finance agent is saving businesses 17 to 18 hours a week.
Wait, 17 to 18 hours a week? That's practically half a full-time employee.
Exactly. It achieves that by fully automating complex multi-step processes, stuff like generating profit and loss statements and doing predictive cash flow analysis.
But I keep coming back to the existential threat here. Even if Intuit has a great system today, these generalized models are getting smarter every single week. Won't a hypothetical tax GPT eventually figure out the recipe and just eat their lunch?
See, that assumes the primary barrier in finance is just intelligence. It fundamentally misunderstands the nature of financial regulation.
How so?
Generalized LLMs are incredibly smart, sure, but they hallucinate facts. Furthermore, they do not inherently know the absolute source of truth for complex, constantly changing tax law across thousands of local jurisdictions.
Right, because tax code changes every year.
And in a highly regulated environment, getting taxes or payroll wrong carries massive financial penalties.
Yeah, you can't just tell the IRS, sorry, my chatbot hallucinated my deductions this year.
Exactly. That liability piece is huge. Nobody wants to be the one left holding the bag if the AI messes up the payroll for 50 employees.
So how does Intuit solve that?
Intuit's true moat is built on guaranteeing accuracy. They actually take on the financial liability if there's a calculation error.
Oh, wow.
And they back that guarantee up with actual human intelligence. If the AI gets confused, a human expert steps in.
So that level of liability and human infrastructure, I'm guessing that is not something a generalized lean tech startup wants any part of.
Not at all. It's too messy and too risky for them.
So because Intuit has secured this AI moat and figured out how to shoulder the liability, they are no longer restricted to just serving micro businesses.
Right.
According to these Q2 2026 filings we're looking at, they are aggressively taking this done-for-you intelligence into much deeper, much more lucrative waters.
The mid-market.
Exactly.
Yeah, back in August 2025, Intuit went through a major reorganization. They created the Global Business Solutions segment specifically to target this $90 billion mid-market.
And when we say mid-market, what size companies are we talking about?
We're talking about businesses with $2.5 million to $100 million in annual revenue.
Okay, so real established operations.
Yes. And to capture this space, they launched the Intuit Enterprise Suite, or IES.
And the metrics on IES are just explosive. We are looking at a 40% growth in mid-market revenue, right? And a nearly 50% sequential jump in IES contracts in just the second quarter. But the number that really stopped me in my tracks is the price tag.
The ARPC.
Yeah, the average revenue per contract for IES is a staggering $27,000.
It's a huge jump.
I mean, how are they convincing businesses to pay that kind of premium, especially when over 90% of these contracts are upgrades from their existing QuickBooks customer base? What makes a mid-market CEO suddenly authorize a $27,000 software expense?
Or IES isn't just an accounting tool. It's a configurable, AI-native enterprise resource planning system, or an ERP.
An ERP.
Right. The problem Intuit recognized is that mid-market businesses are severely over-digitized.
Meaning they just have too much software.
Exactly. A company doing $30 million in revenue might be juggling a dozen different disjointed apps. They have one software for inventory, a different one for payroll, another for financial forecasting.
And yet another for customer relationship management, probably.
Right. And none of these systems talk to each other seamlessly. IES brings all that data, all those workflows, and all those insights into one unified place.
Okay, so the $27,000 isn't just an expensive accounting tool. It's literally the cost of replacing 5 or 6 other expensive tools.
Exactly. Plus, they're building out an entire ecosystem to support this transition.
Like what? What kind of ecosystem?
Well, take Forlane, for example. They're a major business advisory firm, and they just became an official reseller to help implement IES for complex multi-entity businesses.
Multi-entity meaning companies with lots of subsidiaries.
Yeah, and because of the AI native architecture, they are reducing the sales and implementation cycle to under 8 weeks.
Under 8 weeks. How long does that normally take?
For context, legacy ERP systems typically take 6+ months to fully implement.
Wow.
Time is money for a mid-market business. Intuit actually commissioned a Forrester study projecting up to $1.9 million in potential benefits for organizations implementing IES.
Walk me through that. How does a software suite generate nearly $2 million in benefits? That sounds like marketing magic.
It comes from a combination of AI productivity gains.
So your finance team isn't spending 40 hours a week manually entering data.
Right. And then you have the direct cost savings of consolidating all those disparate tech subscriptions we talked about.
Okay.
The AI catches duplicate invoices, optimizes cash flow, and eliminates the need for massive administrative overhead.
I'm tracking how they are doing this for businesses, but earlier you mentioned TurboTax and human experts.
Yeah.
If they are automating all this heavy lifting, what happens to the thousands of human CPAs they actually employ? Are they making themselves obsolete?
Not at all. They're running the exact same AI plus human intelligence playbook to disrupt the consumer tax industry,
Yeah.
but it actually empowers the human experts rather than replacing them.
How does that work in the consumer market, though?
Well, traditionally, Intuit dominated the do-it-yourself tax market, but the DIY market is only a $5 billion total addressable market, or TAM.
And TAM is basically the maximum amount of revenue available if you captured 100% of the industry,
Exactly. But the assisted tax market,
where people pay a professional to do it for them.
right, that market is a colossal $35 billion to $37 billion TAM that represents about 88 million Americans.
And Intuit clearly wants a massive slice of that $35 billion pie.
Oh, they do. And they're capturing this space with TurboTax Live. This is where that blend of domain-specific AI and human tax experts really shines.
Give me an example of how that looks for a user.
Okay, let's say you are an independent contractor who just bought a rental property.
Okay, so my taxes just got very complicated.
Very complicated. So the AI agent ingests all your documents, flags the complex depreciation scenarios, and does all the heavy lifting up front.
But what if it gets stuck?
The moment the AI hits a workflow it cannot complete with 100% certainty, it seamlessly hands the entire context over to a human expert.
Oh, so the human doesn't have to start from scratch.
Exactly. The human reviews it and finalizes it.
So they are basically building a robotic exoskeleton for CPAs.
A robotic exoskeleton. I love that.
It allows a single human expert to process vastly more complex returns with total confidence at a scale that was previously impossible.
And the results we're seeing in the Q2 2026 consumer segment data back that up perfectly.
Yeah.
TurboTax revenue grew 12% to $581 million.
Which is crazy, but what makes that even more remarkable is that early season IRS tax returns were actually down 5% across the board.
Exactly.
Wait, let me make sure I'm getting this right. So Intuit is growing revenue by 12%, even when the overall volume of people filing taxes is temporarily shrinking.
Yes. It points to significant pricing power and market share gains in that higher tier assisted category. They're making more money per user because they're solving harder problems.
We also can't ignore the top of the funnel here because Credit Karma revenue surged 23% to $616 million.
Yeah, massive growth there.
Based on the transcripts, Credit Karma is basically acting as a huge lead generation tool for this entire ecosystem. How does that loop actually work?
It is a brilliant closed-loop system of data and monetization. If you use Credit Karma, Intuit has visibility into your financial milestones.
So if Credit Karma sees you just took out a mortgage and had a child,
The system knows your taxes just got way more complicated. It then organically funnels you right into that high-margin TurboTax Live ecosystem, offering you the exact expert help you now need.
that is incredibly efficient. But, all right, we need to put on our investigative hats for a second.
Let's do it.
The narrative sounds great, and the market expansion looks amazing on these presentation slides. But does the math actually check out in the quarterly filings?
It really does.
Because I'm looking at these Q2 2026 numbers, and I see total net revenue was $4.65 billion.
Which is a 17% increase year over year.
Okay.
But the top line number isn't even the most important part. We have to look at the composition of that revenue. Service revenue accounted for $3.87 billion of the total.
Out of $4.65 billion.
Right. The complete dominance over legacy, boxed product sales proves that the transition to a cloud-based AI platform is actually working.
It's not just a buzzword for them.
Exactly. Furthermore, GAAP operating income.
Which is essentially the profit from their core business operations under standard accounting rules.
Right. That operating income surged 44% to $855 million.
A 44% surge in operating income is serious margin expansion. I assume that proves the AI is allowing them to process vastly more complex work without having to hire a proportional army of expensive human accountants.
You nailed it. And they are returning a lot of that generated capital to shareholders, too.
Right. I saw they repurchased $961 million in stock this quarter.
Yep. And they raised their dividend by 15% to $1.20 a share. Plus, they reiterated their full fiscal 2026 outlook of 12% to 13% revenue growth, aiming for a $21 billion midpoint.
Okay, so it looks bulletproof on the surface, but let's look at the skepticism and the risks, because no company is actually bulletproof.
Very true.
Mailchimp seems to be a noticeable laggard in the portfolio right now.
Mailchimp is definitely the glaring weak spot. Revenue there was actually down slightly year over year.
Down slightly? That's not great.
No. The integration and turnaround are taking much longer than Wall Street anticipated. It actually prompted the CFO to state plainly on the earnings call that all options are on the table regarding its future.
When a CFO says all options are on the table, that is usually corporate speak for we might sell this off or restructure it dramatically.
Exactly. It's a clear warning sign.
And beyond Mailchimp, there are serious macro vulnerabilities here. The CFO warned about the fragility of micro businesses right now.
Right, because inflation and persistent economic pressure mean cash reserves for the smallest businesses are, as they said, down a bit.
And if small businesses close, Intuit loses software subscriptions.
Not just that. Their payment processing volumes drop, and they face increased loan defaults in their QuickBooks Capital segment.
Okay, so macro pressures are a real threat. But then there is the elephant in the room, the literal United States government.
Yeah.
We have to examine the existential threat of IRS Direct File and the expansion of state and federal free filing programs. The government is basically building a free competitor to their consumer tax business. How terrified should Intuit be of this IRS encroachment?
The government threat is highly publicized, I'll give you that. But the narrative often misses the strategic shift Intuit has already made.
How so?
Are government programs a risk to the base DIY tier? Absolutely. If you have a simple W-2, the government's free tool might be all you need.
Right.
However, Intuit's strategic pivot toward the complex $35 billion assisted tax TAM fundamentally insulates them.
Because the government isn't doing assisted taxes.
Exactly. The government is building a basic filing tool. They are not building an AI-assisted advisory platform to help independent contractors optimize their real estate deductions.
That's a great point.
Nor are they building multi-entity ERP software for mid-market construction firms. By aggressively moving upmarket, Intuit is leaving the commoditized, highly vulnerable bottom tier behind.
That makes a lot of sense. To defend against those exact macro risks and government threats, Intuit is building a fortress in the complex tiers.
Precisely.
And a big part of that fortress relies heavily on strategic partnerships to solidify their ecosystem. Which brings us back to management's claim that they operate in a category of one.
Right, because Intuit knows they cannot build every underlying technology themselves. So they are partnering with the absolute best in breed to enhance their proprietary platform.
For example, the $100 million partnership with OpenAI.
Yes, Intuit is embedding TurboTax and QuickBooks capabilities directly into ChatGPT.
Wait, hold on. Earlier we said Intuit fiercely protects its data from public LLMs. Why are they suddenly embedding their capabilities into ChatGPT?
Because this isn't about giving OpenAI their proprietary backend data. This is about massive top-of-funnel reach.
Oh, getting in front of users.
Exactly. They are going to where 800 million weekly users already are. If a small business owner asks ChatGPT a complicated tax question, the system can route them directly into the Intuit ecosystem to actually solve the problem securely.
Okay, I see an Anthropic partnership in the filings too. They are integrating the Claude Cowork model into the Intuit Enterprise Suite for highly specific, industry-tailored dashboarding.
Exactly. For instance, the new construction edition of IES uses Claude to help a project manager visualize supply chain costs and labor overruns in real time.
Oh, wow.
It is highly specific contextual AI that understands their industry.
And we definitely need to touch on the fintech partnerships because they are integrating with Circle and Affirm. What is the strategy there?
By leveraging USDC stablecoins through Circle, they are enabling 247 money movement.
Which is a big deal because usually if a business needs to move money on a Friday night, they have to wait until banks open on Monday.
Exactly. But by plugging into USDC,
which is a digital currency tied directly to the US dollar.
Right. By doing that, Intuit lets businesses settle invoices instantly, even on weekends.
And Affirm.
Integrating Affirm brings buy now, pay later functionality right into QuickBooks payments. This accelerates what Intuit calls their money benefits. Big bet.
That's massive.
Keep in mind, Intuit is processing over $2 trillion in invoices and $105 billion in tax refunds annually.
So if we look at this entire web of partnerships, Anthropic for industry dashboards, Circle for instant crypto rails, OpenAI for global discovery, it really seems like Intuit is trying to become the central financial nervous system for these businesses.
They absolutely are. And this is a high-conviction growth story for exactly that reason. By combining their proprietary core data, the human intelligence of their expert network, and the cutting-edge capabilities of third-party LLMs, They are locking customers into an all-in-one platform.
And the switching costs for a mid-market business or a consumer with complex taxes become incredibly high.
Impossibly high, really. Once Intuit's AI understands the absolute nuances of your multi-entity cash flow or your specific tax history, leaving the platform means starting from zero somewhere else.
That makes total sense. That extreme stickiness is what justifies their premium valuation in the market.
Without a doubt.
It really is a masterclass in evolving a legacy software business into an indispensable utility. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to look toward the horizon. Where does this ultimately lead?
Well, I will leave you with a provocative thought to mull over, something that, frankly, isn't fully resolved yet in the industry.
Okay, let's hear it.
As Intuit's AI agents become fully autonomous, actually executing cash flow decisions, moving money via USDC over the weekend, and filing complex multi-entity taxes entirely on their own, who ultimately holds the legal liability when the AI inevitably makes a devastating mistake?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Is it the business owner who clicked approve, the human expert who oversaw the system architecture, or the algorithm itself? In a highly regulated space, the technology is moving significantly faster than the legal framework.
That is the trillion-dollar question hanging over the entire AI industry right now. It's a question of trust, liability, and consequence. For you listening, whether you are a small business owner looking for operational efficiency or an investor tracking major tech inflection points, Intuit's evolution from a simple system of record to an AI-driven system of intelligence is the absolute blueprint for how legacy software companies must adapt to survive the AI age. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, risk defined, portfolio protected.